So again, welcome to this online day of meditation. The day's date is the 4th of March, 2023. And today, like all our days, today, the outline of today is basically a bit of an orientation and introduction, which is what I'm doing right now. Then I'll guide in two meditations, I think, but if you wanted to just join the meditations together, that'll be fine. I'll do two probably short meditations with a break for those of you who want to move. But if you wanted to stay with it, I'll go back and do the basics again and go into the other meditation. The first meditation I'm thinking of doing is essentially a metta meditation, or a warm benevolence meditation, which includes contacting our innate goodness, connecting with our innate goodness. And I'll invite you to stay there in your heart. It's like a heart opening meditation. The second meditation I'll do will be going through those stages again, up into the heart. Like, I'll invite you to relax and get grounded and come to your heart, open your heart. Then I'll invite you to be attentive to the area around your nose, to practice some Anapana Samadhi. Anapana Samadhi, where we focus on, with concentration on that space in front of just around our nose tip. Could be up your upper lip, or could be in your the sensations in your nostrils. We just stay there, and that staying there is actually quite purifying. It's purifying of the mind. I've been doing some work with Stephen Snyder, and he talks about how the jhana practices, or the practices inclining towards the jhanas, which are concentration-based, emphasizing samadhi, they are purifying in that they tend to help us come back to just this one thing, collecting our attention on, placing it on one thing. And what that does, it kind of reins in the tendency to go off, our minds to go off somewhere else and feed into those divergent processes. So in that way, it kind of purifies the mind, purifies the heart. So they're the first two meditations. The second meditation, as I mentioned, will be just that concentration. Then we'll have a couple of silent meditations, and then I'll invite you to morning tea at about 20 to 11. Then at 11, I'll invite you to the Dharma talk. And today's Dharma talk, I've entitled it Acceptance. And it's actually two talks in one, and I'll explain it as I go. Essentially, it'll be about finding freedom from dukkha. And it'll involve two stories. The first story will be about the dukkha as we experience as not getting what we want exactly as we want it. The light side of dukkha, the light side of the dukkha spectrum. And the second story will involve the heavier side of the dukkha spectrum, what we call dukkha, and meaning double dukkha. And this will involve the elements of not getting what we want and being parted from that which is close to us. And at that end of the spectrum, it includes pain, grief, lamentation, and despair. And it includes, in this case, loss of life. And I'll be talking about the floods, and how do we cope with disasters when things are really difficult? How do we cope with that? So I hope I don't make the talk too long, but that's essentially the gist of the talk. And then we'll open it up for a bit of discussion. And then as we usually do on these days, I have depending on how long we talk for, we have another guided meditation. My plan But that last guided meditation is about equanimity, about finding some peace, finding some centeredness within our hearts, and then just abiding there. So that would be the final meditation. And then we'll have lunch, and then we'll have a break. Sorry, we'll have lunch, which is the break. Then we'll be back at 1:30 Australian Eastern Daylight Time to 2:30, and generally we have 2 meditations in that space. You can do them walking and sitting if you want, or you can just do all sitting, or you can just do all walking. You use that as you wish. And then we meet again at 2:30 for some Dharma discussion. So that's the outline of the day. Please take care of yourselves. If you need to go to the loo and move your body and all the rest of it, or if you need to stand up, do what you need to do. Essentially, as I was saying, the guided meditations that I'll be introducing you to this morning are more about opening the heart, number one, and then with the heart open, being able to focus our attention. So those first 2 meditations are essentially serenity meditations, essentially around the serenity aspect of meditation. Serenity aspects of meditation, you could also call it tranquility or stillness or quietude, or in Pali it's samatha, and in Sanskrit it's shamatha. These meditations are about stilling and quietening and collecting our attention, collecting our mind energy, so they all go into one direction, unifying attention. And at other talks I've talked about the factors of jhanas, the jhana factors, but essentially it's about cultivating these factors of jhanas, essentially about so that we can focus our mind and our minds become very clear, focused, and we can see things. The seeing is the insight component. I'm not going to directly go into insight meditation, but insight happens naturally, I think, when we have a focused mind, when we have a clear mind, when we're seeing things, when we're purifying our minds by not following down tracks or habitual tendencies of mind that get caught up in, our stories. When that happens, we naturally see the way things are. It comes about. It's like the mud settling in a pond, where you start to see clearly what's at the bottom of the pond. When we're not stirring up the pond anymore with our behaviors and our chaotic tendencies, when we're allowing it to still and quiet and become clear, we actually see what's at the bottom of the pond. And you've heard me use this analogy many times. We see the broken bottles and rusty cans and bits of 4B2 with nails sticking out of our lives, so that we're able to remove them out of harm's way, or at least avoid stepping on them. And we also find our precious jewels, our precious, our heart mind, that which is quite beautiful about ourselves. So this is what happens with serenity meditation and how it's joined with insight. So insight allows us to see, and what we see impermanence. We see change. We see the 3 characteristics of the universal characteristics of existence being anicca, dukkha, anatta. Anicca translates as change or impermanence. We see dukkha, the unsatisfactoriness of experience, that we can't find enduring happiness in conditions that change, because they change. And we see anatta, or emptiness, or not self, which is seeing the interdependence of things. We see the way things, there's no one thing that we can call ourselves in all this. We see that the self is in fact a fiction, and that what we see in reality is interdependence, that the way things are all coming together. and naturally and without our control. And we do have choice. The wonderful thing about all this, the liberating thing, is that many things come together, often completely out of our control, and situations arise as the coming together of many factors. And depending on how we relate to those things that come together, depending on how we relate to the experience that comes together, that that allows us to either be free from entanglement in this interdependence, or get further entangled in dukkha. So that's basically it. Okay, so that's the day, and that's the idea of the meditation. So I'm going to stop the recording now, and we'll just move into. I'll guide you in a meditation, but of course, I mean, if you don't want to listen to my guidance, that's fine. It depends on you. You know, if you want to kind of just sit back and, you know, follow the guidance. Like Stephen Snyder, I really like this analogy that he uses. He does some really great guided meditations, and he says it's like relaxing in a boat, and I'm just pulling the boat down. He's just pulling the boat down the stream, and we're just kind of opening up to the view. So it's really quite lovely. So if you have a particular practice you want to do, you're welcome to just do that. Otherwise, I'll invite you to just follow my guidance and then just see how it goes. Okay. So thanks very much.